with Doug Marrone, a man who a couple of years ago got this team to the AFC Championship game. Jacksonville is probably the most desirable job out there at this point in time. They have the #1 overall pick. They have over $100 million in cap space. They've got 11 total picks. This becomes the #1 job out there, with all due respect to all the others, because it offers so much. But Jacksonville this morning moved in a different direction. The Jaguars now join the New York Jets, the Detroit Lions, Atlanta Falcons, and Houston Texans as teams with head coach openings this morning.
Okay, so I have a variety of follow-up questions for you. Let's start with where else you are keeping a close eye on today.
Well, let me say this, Green. Just moments ago, the Bengals announced that Zach Taylor will return for this season. I don't think that's a surprise to a lot of people. But again, the Bengals struggled for a second straight year. They have Joe Burrow coming off the ACL injury, and Zach Taylor will return as the Bengals head coach, which came from Mike Brown this morning. Now, today, I think people are watching the Los Angeles Chargers. Anthony Lynn won his last 4 games, has had over 100 starts missed due to injury. But a lot of people wondering what's going to happen there in Los Angeles with a man who a couple of years ago was a finalist for the NFL Coach of the Year and now is obviously on a hot seat. That would be the one other spot from a head coaching perspective to watch today. That would bring it to 6 total openings in all, which is a little bit under the annual average for the NFL on a yearly basis.
Yeah, and there's frequently a surprise, one that we didn't see coming. So we'll see if we wind up getting that this year. And then let me go back to your previous thought about Jacksonville. Is it too soon to be thinking about candidates for the openings, in particular the one you just described, and I think rightfully so, as the one so many people will be drawn to because of the Trevor Lawrence and all the cap space?
Well, the first name that'll come up, of course, will be Urban Meyer, because essentially he has been pondering the idea of returning or at least making a move to the NFL. And so people know that he's coached in Florida. And I think that that's something that he's been sifting through in recent weeks, trying to decide whether or not to make the jump to the NFL level. And we'll see whether he does or doesn't. But that is a big decision. If he decides to go to the NFL, and he's clearly thinking about that over the last couple of weeks, that would be a candidate for the Jacksonville job and somebody that would garner a lot of attention. They've already interviewed some general manager candidates at this point in time. I think they've interviewed Rick Smith, the former Texas GM, Jerry Reese. I think Louis Riddick has spoken to them. So there have been a number of people involved for the general manager job. But again, this is the most desirable job out there because of the #1 pick, because of all the picks, because of all the cap space, because of the market it's in. So we'll see what Jacksonville decides to do. But Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell, the former tandem that got this team to the AFC Championship, is no longer.
All right, Schefter, outstanding as always, and we will stay very close to you and your ever-present phone, and we'll see what winds up. And the drought is over after a generation, 18 years out of the playoffs. The Browns are trying to play their way back in, Dan, yesterday, and they were riding Nick Chubb.
So early on, you saw the change from the line of scrimmage of that offensive line. And then, you know, one of the things that makes Chubb so special, he's physical, but he's also fast enough to run away from the defense.
And then it's Baker Mayfield making plays where they're there. They're up 10-9, and then he's got his tight end, Austin Hooper.
Yeah, Greeny, they ran this same play in the first half early, and he missed it. This time he snaps his eyes backside and finds Hooper on that shallow cross.
On the other side, you had Mason Rudolph had some good moments, and then he had this moment.
Really good pressure package out of their defense. Myles Garrett actually drops into coverage, and that pressure forces Mason Rudolph to float that football. Finally, Cleveland's defense creating some turnovers.
And with a chance to, they flip the field because it goes to the fourth quarter, and then they flip it to Jarvis Landry, and he's in, and the Browns are in charge.
How about that play? A little bit of jet sweep, goal line handoff to Landry, which I love, but this is something Pittsburgh needs. The deep ball to Chase Claypool. Physical enough to kind of out-jump or out-extend that defensive back to make that catch. Happened a couple times in yesterday's game.
That one makes it 24-16, and then the Steelers are down there again, and this one to Juju Smith-Schuster makes it a 2-point game. The 2-point conversion would tie it, Dan. What do you think of the play?
I don't mind the play at all, but you at some point got to give your guy a chance to get his hands on the football. Mason Rudolph, scramble around, something like that. Give your guy a shot.
Steelers then have one more chance on the onside kick. Steven Carlson is the Cleveland Brown. You're going to see it here. He's number 89. Watch where that ball is. It's between the wickets. Somehow he comes out with the football and gives Baker Mayfield the chance to ice it.
This is an awesome play call by Kevin Stefanski. You're talking quarterback lead. Look at the emotion from Baker Mayfield, realizing this journey for not only himself, but this whole city, this whole fan base. An awesome moment walking into his tunnel.
Think how long ago 2002 was. That's the last time the Browns were in the playoffs. And so here's the AFC picture. You don't see Kansas City on the screen, of course, because they get the bye. Ravens, it starts with Colts-Bills on Saturday. Sunday, our game is Ravens-Titans. That's the early spot, ESPN and ABC. Sunday night, these two teams rematch, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And again, Kansas City gets the bye. So we spent our first hour talking about the Browns. Ryan Clark, my longtime Steeler, let me now come to you. You see the Pittsburgh Steelers going into these playoffs. They didn't play Ben yesterday, so you take that game for what it's worth. Do the Steelers, to you, look like a team that can make a run to the Super Bowl?
Nope, they don't. And that's pretty simple to me. And listen, we saw them play good ball for a half against the Indianapolis Colts, but that team doesn't beat the Buffalo Bills. This team doesn't beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's hard for me to say, but this is the team that doesn't dominate up front offensively. Now, you see they've started to throw the football down the field in the last game and a half, and maybe that's something that can create points like we saw it do early on in the season against the Philadelphia Eagles when we thought, oh my God, this offense has it. Chase Claypool is a revelation. Juju Smith-Schuster working out of the slot. Deontay Johnson making big plays. They haven't been that team. And defensively, they haven't turned the football over like we'd like them to do or like we expected them to do early on in the season. And so for me, this team has played well enough down the stretch to at least say they can win a game this week against the Cleveland Browns. But to say that this team ends up in the Super Bowl would be a stretch, even for a dude who desperately wants them to.
Rex, Super Bowl Steelers?
No, Greeny, when you've had, Ryan talked about it, they played one good half in the last 5 games. I get it, they're 12-4, but they're 1-4 in their last 5. They're going the wrong way. This team is not peaking. They're doing just the opposite.